Welcome back, I'm Ryan from Bluewood Gaming, and we are back here in some more Nioh. Now for this episode, as you can see from the title, we are doing a build guide for a fire-based build that I like to call the Phoenix. We'll get into why it's called that here in a minute, but straight into the stats. Now, I am level 200. Most of you out there watching this are not going to be level 200, so let's just get into the important stats. Body, you want to have it 40. Our main weapon is going to be a spear, and having 40 body helps with the spear, and also we just get a bunch of health from that. The next one that is super important is spirit. We want to have at least 21 spirit, I believe it is, for our guardian spirit that we are using, which I will get into here in a minute. And then magic, we want to have 30 magic so that we can equip everything that we are using. Another stat that's really important is stamina. We need to have stamina, I believe, at 21 as well. Just enough so that the equip weight is under 30%. The rest of them, it really depends on what your main weapon's going to be, or your secondary weapon. I'm using dual katanas right now just to get them to max proficiency, but depending on what you want, you're also going to need to have that stat also pretty high. You're also going to need skill up at 13, and then dexterity you're going to have need just a little bit of dexterity. Bringing dex up to 10 will be enough for the ninjutsu that we were using. So, let's go into the actual equipment that we're using. This is a build based around doing fire damage and stacking fire damage and such. Now, we're using the red demon armor for the effects of the red demon armor. Now, as you can see, we're using all but one piece of the red demon armor, but we're still getting the full 6-piece set. To do this, you need to be on New Game Plus, and I'll get to that here in a second. But yes, as you can see, we're using it for the skill damage of Spearfall, which I don't use that often, the close combat damage increase, the key recovery speed, and the close combat attack when an enemy is on fire. The close combat attack is the main one. This build is still very viable without the full 6-piece set, so if you don't have the accessory that we are using, but I'll show you how to get that accessory, so you should be able to get most of this. But that close combat, the close combat attack is the main portion when the enemy is scorched. So yes, as you can see, I'm using 4 pieces of the actual set plus the actual spear that goes with it. The secondary weapon can be anything you want, just make sure that it has fire on it. I'm currently using these, as I said, to get my weapon proficiency with dual swords up to max, but you can use whatever. The headpiece, though, is going to be an Ogress mask. Now, this you can only get if you play the Last Chance Trial and beat the final boss, or kill a revenant that has this mask. I have this reforged, or I changed the look of it to look like the normal red demon mask, but this is in fact the Ogress mask. The reason why we want this is for the fire damage, because, well, we're getting an extra 20% fire damage with this at max familiarity. It starts out at 15, and 15 is still good enough. Now, the way that we are able to get away with doing this, with only having 5 of the 6 pieces and still getting the 6-piece set, is for this thing called the Asakani Magatama. I think that's right. The special thing about this is that it sets the set bonus requirement -1. As you can see, the green effect down here. And it does exactly what it says. Reduces the number of pieces equipped. If I could speak today, reduces the number of pieces of equipment needed to earn a set bonus by 1. The effect is not cumulative. I will just insert a video here of me going through the mission to do it. The mission place is, in fact, here in the 5th region, Sekigahara, in a map called the Watcher of Darkness. So now I will put in a short little video of me going through the path of where to find it. So once you've farmed that enough times to get it, then you can actually put the set all together. Now, like I said, you can do without either the Ogre's Mask or without the sixth piece of the set, but it's best just to have it all together. So after that, let's actually get into what we are using as our ninjutsu and our magic. We are mostly magic, as you saw. So in here, the magic is what we're doing mostly. The ninjutsu, this is the first part of what I like to call the Phoenix. This is the quick change scroll. What it does is, if you were to die, instead your life total is reduced down to 1, and you enter a puff of smoke in the air, able to do a drop attack directly in front of you. Having all of this gets up to lets you do it 3 times. This is just a contingency against boss or something. It is very good to have the oh, I'm forgetting the name of it right now. The mystic art that lets you instantly perform ninjutsu on yourself, because if you do that, then you can be in the process of the enemy swinging down to kill you, and you can put on a quick change scroll. Now, this does require you to have 15 total ninjutsu. You can also get rid of the quick change scroll if you don't want to use it, and you can change it to fire shurikens here. This is what you would change that to, but I prefer the quick change scrolls. Fire shurikens, you throw them, and after a set amount of time they explode. Not really extremely useful, but this is what I would use. You can also use any sort of bomb, but that requires you to go more into ninjutsu than I would like. Going on to the magic, this is the important part. Weakness Talisman is what we were going after. This reduces the enemy defense power. We can overall do more damage to them, and I don't know if if you can set enemy on fire easier, but it's a pretty good way to lower their defenses. Next, the two most important ones are Fire Talismans and 3 Fire Shots. The Fire Shots actually shoots out an orb of fire. This is almost the quickest way to put fire on an enemy. This works for pretty much anything besides bosses resistant to fire. This build is not very good against things resistant to fire. Thankfully, there's not that many things. A few of the bosses, I think maybe 3 or so of the bosses are resistant to fire, and the wheel monks are resistant to fire. Besides that, pretty much everything goes down very quickly, and things catch on fire very quickly. The reason why we have the Fire Talisman, because it doesn't exactly up our fire damage all that fast. What it does do is it sets the enemy on fire much faster, so that's what we're using there. Continuing on down, we're using Rejuvenation Talismans because this build just happens to take a lot of chip damage that I've seen. It also helps in some other places we don't die quite as quickly, because I found that this is a very suicidal build, and you get into quite a few situations where you really take a lot of chip damage, and that's pretty much just to counteract the chip damage. Then next is Cure Fast. I want to make sure that if I do need to heal, that I can heal all the way. At my 2700, I think, health, an elixir will fully heal me up. Next thing, Carnage Talisman. I rarely use this. This is not used very often. This is only used when a boss is at somewhat low health and we just need to get through it really, really fast. You can take away Carnage Talisman and you wouldn't lose much. If you did that, I would set it to something like Steel or Protection Talismans. I would mostly go with Steel Talismans instead. You could also use, say, Luckbringer. Essentially, you could replace Carnage with whatever you want. Then next, you're going to need all of the Incantation Mastery to up your Amino magic capacity all the way up to 40. So, just to show you what I have readied, all 3 Fire Talismans, all 3 Fire Shots, all 3 Weakness, all 3 Rejuvenation, all 3 Carnage, and that is it. You could use the Guardian Spirit Talisman, but that is that's a little change on the build that I'll get to here in a minute. So that's pretty much the majority of this build. Let me go to the reason why we call it the Phoenix is because we're using the Phoenix Zuzaku. The important part about this is fire damage gets up 17.5%, which is amazing. Also, we activate Living Weapon when we are at no life, and then we also auto charge it when we are close to dying, and our Amrita earned when using Living Weapon is up 30%. But mostly it's for the fire damage and the fire resistance. This is really why I call it the Phoenix, because we have a lot of ways to come back after our actual death, and playing this build kind of plays like you are a 3-stage boss fight. Your first stage is where you're just fighting and you're just playing the game like normal with your fire weapons, setting enemies on fire and everything. Stage 2 is once you would die, technically, when you have Living Weapon activated, then that is stage 2, and then stage 3 is after you've set Living Weapon, you will be set back to 1 health, where you can go and restart the process. So, this really I find it kind of fun to go through this, because this is a much more aggressive build than my last one was, and even all of the ones that I went through all of the campaign, as this is much more of an aggressive build, which I will throw in some clips after I finish talking about this. And yeah, that's pretty much the reason why I have it like this. There is a tweak to the build that I have that I call firecat, and that has you using Inko. Now, Inko still gives you plus 14% fire damage. Your strong attack key reduction is great, and your break is great. Your also strong attack damage is amazing. So if you use a strong attack lock, then Inko might be for you. The other thing that you would want to change if you use Inko is you probably wouldn't want to use the quick change scrolls. You might still, but I wouldn't. I would change it to something like power pills or something similar. Next, you also would want to change up Carnage Talismans, and maybe even a few of the fire shots and or weakness to put in Guardian Spirits, because Inko's Guardian Spirit is amazing when used with the Guardian Spirit Talisman. Essentially what he does is it has Inko run forward a short distance, and then he will kind of hit the ground with his paw and cause a fairly large explosion. Any human-sized enemy will be sent flying, and you could do a grapple attack on them after you do that. So if you use the Inko and the firecat build, that I would call it, then that's what I would go with. I'm actually going to respec my character into the firecat build again, but yeah, that plays a slight bit more defensively because it uses the Guardian Spirit Talisman and doesn't have all the ways to survive after death. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I will be showing off some footage of this, like I said, and yeah, that's pretty much it. The next episode, I don't know what kind of build I'll be doing next, but I will probably be doing another build. Oh, just something that I forgot to show. I showed off everything except for the fire amulet because I didn't want to leave this spot empty. The fire amulet is essentially just a fire talisman that you can't get back, so it's the emergency plan. But yeah, that is it for this episode. And the next one, like I said, I don't know what I'm going to be doing. It's most likely going to be another build video. But let's just get into the clips. Remember, I'm Ryan from Bluewood Gaming, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one. Come on.